Good evening and welcome to episode 16 of the Pack Homer
No,
Podcast.
17.
17 of the Pack Homer Podcast, brought to you by Waters and Mathis CPAs. If you're looking to run rule the IRS, visit WMCPAs.com. Got a lot going on. We're hosting a regional at the Doak this weekend, and I know we're all very excited about that and to talk about our opportunities there and our matchups. Real quick before we get into that, I do want to talk briefly about the ACC tournament. We looked about as good as you could offensively against Virginia Tech in our first game, and then against Duke. Against Duke, we just didn't have it. Really, it was a game. I think we ended up getting out hit 6-5. It was a 0-0 game where Sam had hit Duke for, I want to say 4 innings, maybe 4 plus. And then they scored like 6 runs in like 5 minutes. The bases got loaded there. First they hit a solo home run, a fence scraper. I think like Coach Avent was getting interviewed by the network. And then they loaded the bases up and hit one to the moon. The next one was not a fence scraper. But it got out of hand pretty quick. Duke went up 6-0, really never lost control of that baseball game. We never really put any real game pressure on them after the fourth. Just that's, tournament baseball.
It just wasn't our night. That's for sure.
I think, if there's any hindsight, I think you could say maybe when the bases were loaded, maybe you go ahead and go to Duden then. What'd you guys think?
I thought especially after the walk to the 9-hole hitter, that was was the kind of tipping point for me. I felt like, yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, I understand the strategy. You're obviously playing the win. I think we essentially had the most to gain from winning it all, unlike some other teams that were trying to play, like Duke, for instance, was trying to play to become a host. That obviously didn't happen. We can get into that in a little bit, but obviously the strategy was to try to win it all so we could become a national seed. You got to think. So I get the strategy. You're trying to save, some of the guys, but I feel like in that moment, like national seed's important, but to me, gosh, I really just wanted to see Avent get an ACC championship, and I felt like the stars were kind of aligning this season. So I am somewhat disappointed. I guess we can glean the positive as it's more time for people to get healthy and rested, and hopefully the long rest is beneficial for us.
Yeah, we had some other. I mean, we had some guys really swing the bat too in the tournament. Even though we didn't really put up any major threat against Duke. I mean, I think in those 2 games in Charlotte, I think Butterworth hit another home run. Pennington hit everything that got thrown to him, 100 mile an hour or harder it seemed. Amac had multiple hits. Sosa against Virginia Tech. So yeah, there were some positives to glean. And then I'd say in Coach Chrysler and Coach Avent's defense on getting Duden into the game. Honestly, like Duke ambushed us. It happened so fast that Sam went from throwing a no-hitter to giving up a home run and the bases loaded. I mean, quicker than honestly you could really get someone loose. So I think Coach Avent said after the game that Sam's been our guy and he trusted him in that situation and has every reason to, as many big games as he's been in. But we just kind of they were the hammer and we were the nail. It just was one of those ball games. But then Duke goes on and wins the ACC tournament. They end up. We had multiple predictions last week on our show amongst the 3 of us that ended up coming true. One, Wesley said Clemson was going to Clemson. I made the. I don't know that I predicted it, but I said Miami definitely has the talent to get hot. Miami took Duke to the wall. And Duke escaped that scare. I think Miami led that game in the 7th inning before Duke kind of busted it open. And then also we said that Chase Burns was going to beat Carolina, which I don't think he was the winning pitcher in that game. That was a heck of a ball game, guys. I don't like either one
Unbelievable.
of them. I can't stand either one of them. Might be the best college baseball game I've watched all year, though.
I would agree.
Honeycutt comes up and hits a double to take the lead in the top of. I think it was the top of the ninth, and then no, I guess that was the bottom of the eighth. He has the hit to give them the lead, and then Kurtz comes up and one hops the wall, ties the game, and then my God, the ball he hit opposite field in like the 12th inning. It might have landed in South Carolina. I'm not sure, but it was an unbelievable ball game. Not to talk too much about that. Yeah, but how about the play at the plate Wake Forest made with the bases loaded?
Man, that was I would have lost all faith in the ACC officiating refereeing staff if they would have overturned that. I guess the controversy was potentially him blocking the plate, but it was a forced play at the plate, so you had to come home anyway. But yeah, that was an awesome play. That was King.
What? Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head. I think it
I
was
can't
the
remember.
shortstop, the leadoff kid. I can't
Oh, it was
remember.
short. Okay. I
But
thought it was
anyway,
third. Okay.
it was a heck of a
Yeah.
play. But anyway, great ball game. But then Duke goes on and they beat the snot out of Florida State in the championship game, win that game 16-4. I think every one of us probably thought going into last night Duke was going to host. Did anyone not think Duke was going to host after that?
No,
I did not think they were not going to host.
I thought they were in.
So you have a 16 ACC champion who beat Florida State and NC State, both top 15 RPI teams. Who else did they beat to get there? They beat Miami, and I don't remember who else they beat. But anyway,
Wake.
Virginia Tech. They beat Virginia.
Yeah,
Virginia Tech. They beat Miami in the semi. They beat Virginia Tech, Miami.
Oh, that's right.
NC State, Florida State, and win 16-4 in the ACC championship, and do not get a seed, not a national seed. They didn't get a host. They don't get a host at all. What did you guys make of that? And why do you think that was?
I mean, the RPI got back up to 16. It jumped 4 spots. I think they were hovering around 20 going into the tournament. I would have never thought that you could run that gauntlet of the ACC tournament, be a top 16 RPI and not host. And not only did they not host, but I mean, they got bumped down several spots as a 2 seed. I mean, I guess Wake would be considered the number 1 2 seed because they're going to Greenville. They're essentially the number 17 team. Which, I mean, makes sense. Wake's a 9 in the RPI. I mean, you could make the case that the ACC got 5 host sites, and we had 2 teams that are not hosting that are both top 16 RPI. I think Wake is, they kind of knew where they were with their, 15-15 conference record, but Duke to win the ACC tournament, I mean, Wes, I mean, you brought it up. You want to weigh in about your thoughts on the ACC tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think the committee's made it clear that the tournaments just don't mean anything. I mean, I watched East Carolina kick it around all weekend against Rice and Wichita State, and then you watch Duke win the tournament, and then East Carolina's hosting, and I think East Carolina's kind of an anomaly because us three realized that in this region, East Carolina is a top 16 team, in my opinion. They really are a very good team. But that's got to be hard to swallow for some of the teams that don't know, outside of this, Southeast region, how good of a team East Carolina is, just based on their overall strength of schedule. And I mean, what would East Carolina do if NC State and North Carolina just said, "Hey, we're not scheduling you midweek anymore"? Our strength of schedule is tough enough. What do we have to gain by playing you? What does East Carolina do then? Because, I mean, from a series standpoint, they beat North Carolina the first couple weekends of the season. After North Carolina's starting pitcher, don't remember the name, he was out with UCL, so Carolina's trying to find their staff. I think their Friday night guy ended up being the true freshman. So East Carolina did win that, but outside of that series, I'm not sure what other series they could lean on. And then if you're Duke with the strength of schedule that they had, and I don't know, maybe at some point the committee, and if you're looking at the, from a fan experience for the host teams, I mean, maybe it came down to, do we really want this many SEC and ACC hosts? I don't know. I think if you're in the Duke clubhouse, and maybe it came down to their stadium size. I don't know. You read all this stuff on Twitter and you read social media, but it would be hard to swallow. But I mean, looking for, other than the fact that Coach Avent's never won an ACC championship, what does the ACC tournament matter if the committee is going to weigh 0 to little on the results of that tournament? What does it matter?
And I like Cliff. I'm not Cliff Godwin, the head coach at ECU. I'm not trying to be overly critical of Cliff, but Cliff went and put a dissertation up on X on why they should host. Did you guys see that? Yeah.
Yeah, but Cliff failed to include the overall strength of schedule in his dissertation.
He did
the one
pen and paper too, baby. I like his style.
Yeah, that was awesome. Right on his stationery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like. Hey, it worked. It worked. There you go. But I think Gilbert, right? Their AD was on the selection committee. So how much does that weigh into?
There's a lot of controversy about that this time, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I for the haters and me, I like ECU. I think ECU is a top 16 team personally. I just think for some of the teams outside, that might be hard to swallow looking at their overall resume.
This is one of the things that makes college baseball so great. Like, you look at college football this year and what happened to Florida State, and just got shafted after going undefeated. And I mean, obviously with Travis out, they weren't the same team, but ECU still has a chance to make it to Omaha. Florida State never got that opportunity in college football season because of the way that setup is different. Of course, that playoffs expanded, and they should make it a little better. But Cliff lobbied pretty hard, and part of me thought that I have no idea how much money the NCAA gets from the tournament, but do you want 2,000 people in Durham or 8,000 people in Greenville? Seems maybe a little bit more lucrative if the NCAA is getting a cut of those ticket sales to have ECU host that regional. So I don't know, a lot going into it. Anyway, NC State is a regional host. Number 10, did you guys expect it to be that high? We're the 10 seed in the NCAA tournament.
I did not expect it to be that high.
I kind of figured it was going to be maybe 12 to 14.
Yeah, and I was hoping for 11 because I was wanting to be noted up with Clemson for the Supers potentially. But I mean, I'll take it. I mean, I think I like our matchups. I mean, all the freaking matchups in the tournament are going to be tough, right? I mean, it's going to be hard from here on out. Our RPI had fallen down to 15. We did end up with the number 3 overall strength of schedule. So I mean, 10's not necessarily a surprise. I was still thinking we'd be, like you said, 11 or 12 or 13. I guess 11 was the one I was hoping for, but I'll take it.
How about Coach Walter at Wake Forest? They lost, and he didn't even try to lobby. He was like, "No, we don't."
That was pretty. That was I respect that, what he said. He was like, "No, there's too many other worthy teams." I mean, that was, and they ended up being the first team out. If you look at it that way. So yeah.
I do want to say so we're going to talk about our regional here in a minute. So NC State is, of course, the host. Our guests this weekend at the Doak are South Carolina as the 2 seed, James Madison as the 3 seed, and Bryant as the 4 seed in the Raleigh regional. I do want to, just hats off again to Coach Avent, guys. Like, all these things we were just talking about ECU plays in this large ballpark, and the money that some of these SEC schools spend on baseball, and you go to Arkansas or Ole Miss or Mississippi State. I mean, we're playing in a glorified high school field. No offense to our place, we love it, but I say we love it. We love it because it's ours. But what Coach Avent's done, I don't know how many regionals this is now that we've hosted, but it's absolutely incredible to me. I think we all hoped when the season started that we would have a team that would host a regional. I don't think, I think as a state fan, you never count your chickens before they hatch, but we felt like we had a good team. But I mean, just super impressed again at what Coach Avent's done to host a regional with a team that has gone through what we've gone through, won the gauntlet of a schedule, but then you put all the injuries on top of it. I think he's the best there is in North Carolina. And one of me and Adam, and actually Wesley, I don't know if he included you on the text this week, but one of me and Adam and Wesley's really good friends, who is a ECU and Ole Miss alum. He texted us this week and said that he obviously follows Ole Miss and ECU baseball close, but he said that Cliff was the second best baseball coach in the state. And I said, well, who's the best? He said, it's got to be Elliott, for what he's done for so long for us in Raleigh. I think that sometimes as fans, us on here, we can be pretty critical of a lot of different things. But Wesley said it, I think, before the year started, like what he's done, the longevity. Like, if there's a program you can get behind, please show up this week at the ballpark. Don't let South Carolina have half the seats at the Doak this weekend.
I saw it was all sold out except for one section, except for section 14, I guess, when I checked earlier. So that was a good sign. All the other seats were taken. There was no singles left, it showed.
So excited about that. So game 1, 7 o'clock, Friday night. We have Bryant. And we've kind of all done a little bit of homework. So Adam is our resident Bryant baseball expert. What you know about Bryant, Adam?
So Bryant University is the American East champion. They auto-qualifier by winning the American East. Bryant is in Smithfield, Rhode Island, of all places. It's their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2016. They moved to D1 early, like 2010, 2011. I can't remember exactly. They did make it to the Division II World Series in the early 2000s. First time ever as a 4 seed. They've never played NC State or South Carolina. This is their 4th NCAA tournament appearance. They're 1-6 career in the regionals. Interestingly enough, in 2013, the year that when we were in Omaha, they beat Arkansas that year. Arkansas was a 2 seed, and the Bryant Bulldogs were the 3 seed that year, and they beat Arkansas. I looked. Interestingly enough, they have. I think they've only played a couple of. I didn't look up their strength of schedule. They have played a couple of tournament teams, UConn and UCF. I think they had a series. The first series of the year was with UCF, but it looked like they only got one of those games in. They did go 1-2 versus Pitt. They are 20-4 at home and 14-15 away from home. So that was a pretty interesting little tidbit. As far as a little statistics on them, they have hit 81 home runs. I think we've hit 83 or 84 as a reference. They have struck out 460 times. So they do strike out a lot. Or they have struck it out a lot. One interesting thing, though, I saw a tweet today from Ben Upton, who is one of the co-hosts on the 11.7 College Baseball Podcast. He tweeted, he said, every year I pick my favorite 4 seed to win the an NCAA regional. After hours of research, I have chosen my fandom for this year, the Bryant Bulldogs. Their top 7 pitchers are all old enough to rent a car. So, and I looked them up. They have a senior, junior, graduate, senior, graduate, senior is their top 7 pitchers. I guess the one positive thing is 5 of those 7 are righties, which would match up a little better to our left-handed heavy batting order. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, everything this time of year is tough. I mean, I still like State's chances. Bryant, didn't play a lot of, teams this year, obviously. They haven't played anybody like that. Another interesting stat is for the season, I mentioned they were 20-4 at home and 14-15 away from home. They played 24 home games. Their home attendance is 5184. So that's 216 people per game. So they haven't played in front of quite as many folks as they will at the Doak this weekend, thankfully. So yeah, we'll see. I know somebody sent out a stat. Maybe it was you, Cal, about their ace pitcher. I think he had pitched like 65 innings. Their stats on their website's a little goofy, but I think their top pitcher had pitched like 65 innings. I want to say had like a mid-2 ERA. But yeah, I do like the right-handed heavy pitching staff. I think that sets up well for us. And I just hope we don't get caught looking past this game. Right? I don't think we will, but that's always kind of the worry in this type of scenario. They started off the season really slow. I think they were 1-7 or 1-8, and then finished whatever it was, 39-17 overall or something like that, or 39-19. But
well, I think one of the positives about how poorly we played in the midweek games is surely we're not going to underestimate any of our opponents, and to counter the journalists that talked about having pitchers that are old enough to rent a car. Logan Whitaker's been contributing to his 401k for several years now. So we counter there.
So tell me this. So we're all picking the Pack Friday night at 7, right? I think
yes.
We're going to be unanimous in our pick that we're going to beat Bryant. Who are we going to start on the mound Friday night? And then we're going to move on to the next matchup. Who are we going to start on the mound?
Marone for me. I'll take Marone.
I like Marone. I like that. I would say the only thing is, man, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I like Marone. The other guys obviously hadn't pitched anything, so I wouldn't be upset if we got Marone out of there quick and, gave the other guys even an inning or something, what their normal bullpen session would be. But yeah, I like the Marone. I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah, I like Marone.
I think earlier I said I would throw Witt, and the reason for that, he hasn't thrown in a couple of weeks. And then I think between the 3 of our starters, Sam, Dom, and Witt, I think Witt's the guy, because he was in the bullpen at the beginning of the year, that could bounce back. So, like, if you go out and you start him and he throws 40 pitches and you jump out to a 9-0 lead, you can get him out of there and you feel like he can come back Sunday, because obviously we feel like he has the type of arm that can throw twice in a weekend. Now, he's not been prepping and preparing for that, but he's that kind of guy, or we would have never put him in the bullpen to begin with, where I kind of feel like maybe Dom we stuck with him as a starter, in the beginning of the year when he was struggling, because, maybe he didn't have that kind of arm that could throw twice in a weekend. And really, any guy you got in your bullpen, you want to be able to do that. So I kind of like Witt, just because I hate to just go out and roll the dice, throwing my freshman. But if we throw Marone, I'd be fine with that. So the second matchup is James Madison and the South Carolina Gamecocks. And Wesley has been researching James Madison for weeks now. He was kind of predicting they were going to beat. So Wesley is our James Madison Dukes expert. What you got, Wes?
Yeah, so James Madison, the Dukes in Harrisonburg, the Shenandoah Valley, I actually have quite a bit of experience in the Shenandoah Valley. As believe it or not, a lot of chicken and turkey production, directly in Harrisonburg. So it's pretty unique downtown area. I would lean that James Madison is a pretty liberal school, heavily liberal, but they're downtown. Downtown Harrisonburg has 2 feed mills, which is where chicken turkey feed would be made. And it's always an interesting dynamic to see the condos near the feed mills in Harrisonburg. So Shenandoah Valley is pretty unique and beautiful place. Talking about their performance, they actually opened the season in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They played 4 games at Arkansas. They lost 1-3, but did win a game. So I think when we talk about environment, they certainly aren't going to be, intimidated by.
They're not going to be intimidated by our place, are they?
No, they certainly won't be intimidated by the Doak. They lost their series at Coastal this year. They won a series against Troy. As far as their pitching goes, not that much different than our pitching. A 6.01 ERA. From a hitting standpoint, they can put the ball in play. Batting 300 as a team. They've hit 84 home runs, and as we were talking before we started recording, these guys are like jackrabbits when they get on a base pass. So they stole 100 bases this year. They got a kid that's similar, I would say, to Vance Honeycutt, Fenwick Trimble. He's hitting 371 on 14 home runs, stolen 16 bases. They have another guy who has stolen 29 bases. When you look at their pitching, I think they're going to throw Donovan Burt against South Carolina. He's thrown 84 innings. He's a left-handed pitcher. He has he's throwing a 5 ERA, but he's throwing a lot of innings. He's eaten up a lot of innings. Again, these guys have seen, serious competition when it comes to Arkansas. Troy's again. Did Troy end up making a tournament? I'm guessing they did. Troy did not make the tournament. Wow.
I don't think no.
Wow. Who I probably think we're going to see in our games, another left-handed pitcher, Max Cooley. He's got a 4.13 ERA. He's thrown less innings, but opponents are hitting 239 against him. So their 2 guys are lefties, which would be a little opposite than how we match up against Bryant in the opening game.
The Gamecocks. So South Carolina, we kind of we got a little bit of a connection with South Carolina in that their AD is Coach Ray Tanner. Guys, I knew Coach Tanner was really good at NC State, but I didn't realize how good. In 9 seasons, he averaged 43 wins a season at NC State. 43-19 was his average win-loss record in his 9 years at NC State. If you guys don't know the story, and maybe I got the story wrong, feel free to hit us up on @PackHomerPod, Instagram, and X if I do have the story wrong. But the story I've always heard is that Coach Tanner wanted a little better facilities. And we were not ready to invest in better facilities for Coach Tanner. And he packed up his stuff and went to South Carolina. I think Coach Avent and Coach Tanner are very good friends. Coach Tanner now is not the baseball coach at South Carolina anymore, but he did win 2 College World Series there, played in 4 or 5 College World Series before he became the athletic director for the University of South Carolina. So we do have a connection there.
He played shortstop for us.
Did he? Shortstop.
Yeah.
I actually have an autographed Tanner jersey from South Carolina that I got at an NC State auction, or it was like a charity event, and I think NC State was somehow involved and had a Ray Tanner jersey that I have for my man cave. But another interesting fact about having South Carolina in our regional is last year our season ended down in Columbia, South Carolina. I actually was there. We ended up, our last game was against Campbell, but we won our first game, played South Carolina last year in a regional in front of 7,000 strong at Founders Park there in Columbia, and lost 6-3 to South Carolina in a game that we out-hit them 12-8. And you guys know any opportunity that I get a chance to talk about walks, I'm going to do it. Last year in that game that we lost 6-3 to South Carolina, we walked them 9 times. Their pitchers walked us 0 times. We out hit them 12-8. Lost the ball game 6-3. But South Carolina, a really good ball club, a team that was fighting to host a regional themselves. Their RPI is number 21. Strength of schedule is 8. They had 15 Q1 wins. They swept Vanderbilt, won 2 out of 3 versus Kentucky. Also won 1 out of 3 versus Arkansas. They kind of hit a bump in the road at the end of the year that probably really cost them their opportunity to host. They got swept by UGA and Tennessee the last 2 weekends of the regular season, but then played really good in the SEC tournament. They beat Arkansas, Kentucky, and Alabama in the SEC tournament before bowing out to LSU, who beat them twice in the tournament. LSU is red hot right now. But to compare South Carolina to the team they had last year, so NC State, I went back and actually looked at the box score, that 6-3 game. And NC State in that game, we're going to start at least 3 of the same guys, possibly 4. So last year in that game against South Carolina, Noah Souls, Jacob Cozart, Chase Nixon, and Eli Serrano started in that game. We feel like if we were to match up with South Carolina this weekend, of course, we may or may not, but if we do, you feel like for sure Souls, Cozart, and Serrano are going to be in the lineup, and probably if a right-handed pitcher's throwing, Chase is going to be in the lineup as well. So we have 4 starters coming back from that game on the offensive side. South Carolina has 6 guys coming back. Petrie, Messina, LaCroix, I guess Casas, Brewer, and Tippett. Now, last year for South Carolina, Ethan Petrie and Cole Messina were kind of their guys then too. Petrie has hit 302 this year with 21 home runs. I think he hit 20 or so home runs last year. I think he actually hit 23 last year. Messina is hitting 330. His batting average is a little up. I think Petrie hit like 375 last year. But anyway, Messina is hitting 330 with 20 home runs. They're a lineup that can hit the ball at the ballpark like most SEC schools can. They've hit 94 home runs as a team. One of the things that stuck out to me like a sore thumb is how many times they strike out. They strike out an astronomical amount. And now you strike out a lot when you play in the SEC because the pitching you see every night is so good. But they have struck out 594 times.
Wow.
Very rare that you see a team as good as South Carolina is that strikes out, more than their opponents. That they've struck out 594 times. Their opponents have struck out 570. But they get their hacks in. Ethan Petrie, who's hitting 302 with the 21 home runs, has struck out 72 times. He's their second leading hitter. And then Messina, who I mentioned earlier, who's their leading hitter, has struck out 65 times. Out of their top 5 guys, oh my gosh, just the whole lineup. They're everyday guys. They got a guy who struck out 65, 72, 41, 61, 56, 46, 55, 58. So they struck out a bunch. How many? I don't have our stats in front of us. How many times have we struck out now? Probably about 400.
Don't know.
I think 360 something.
So 594 times is a big number. They're aggressive on the bases. I don't
348. 348.
We've struck out 348 times. They've struck out 594 times. That's a glaring difference. They have walked 367 times, which is also a big number. I guess you do strike out a lot when you go deeper in counts. They do run on the base pass. They swipe 66 bags. But they've been thrown out 16 times. Last year in that game that we played in Columbia, gosh, the name evades me now. But anyway, the starter that they threw in that game last year is not back. Their ace now is, I would say, well, if you say the ace is the guy that starts the most games, it would probably be Eli Jones. He's got 14 starts, a 5.32 ERA, only 52 strikeouts in 64 innings. Another guy, Dylan Eskew, has 14 starts as well, a 4.87 ERA, and 38 strikeouts in 57 innings. So they're two guys that they really rely on to eat a lot of innings. They're not guys that are going to go out there and punch you out a lot. So I think, us being a team that puts the ball in play a lot, already, I don't think we're going to go up there and punch out a bunch, but, we're going to have to hit it where they ain't some. Chris Veach, who had the save last year in that game in Columbia, he looks like he's their best reliever again. He's got a 3.60 ERA, 50 strikeouts in 40 innings, and I think he's their go-to out of the pen. Opponents hitting 204 against him. So, as a pitching staff last year, one of the things that a lot of people praise South Carolina, got high praises. They had a 4.19 ERA last year, which is pretty good now in college baseball, the way the ball flies out of the ballpark. This year, not quite as good. They're at 5.08, but their ERA in SEC play was 6.40. Not very many common opponents between the two of us. They did lose to Clemson in their only two matchups. They had a 3-game set scheduled. Were only able to play 2, and Clemson beat them twice. They did beat UNC 2-1 in a midweek game in Charlotte. So, I'd say a team that on paper they went 13-17 in the SEC. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. I think obviously that's why they're coming to Raleigh this time, and we're not going to Columbia. But still a really good baseball team. So that is your South Carolina Gamecocks. So how do you guys expect this one to go this weekend?
Man, I'm a diehard Pack homer, so the fact that we got a show that talks about Pac-9, I just don't foresee a situation where I would pick against us. So, I mean, we have all the pieces. We started seeing it really coming together, the last couple weeks of the season felt like, really with how the rotation worked out and the guys that our starters were paired up with out of the bullpen. We had some guys in the bottom of the lineup, the productivity we were getting from the bottom of the lineup, all those things. Did we take a little step back by losing, the way we did in Charlotte? Yes, probably. But hopefully, like I said earlier, hopefully the extra days off don't hurt us and we're able to capitalize on it and get maybe some guys that were, we know Souls was, still playing a little early. Kind of took a nasty tumble in the game there, late in the season too. So I don't know. I like us to win. I mean, I think we're, even the guys on the ACC network, which is rare for them to say anything positive about NC State. Mentioned a couple of times during the tournament that, we were one of the hottest teams in the country. So I think we keep it rolling. I saw South Carolina struggle some, in a couple of games that I watched. I didn't watch them play much, but it's hard enough for me to watch a state game. So, but I like us to win. I really do. Now, how many games is it going to go and all that sort of stuff? I don't know, but I do like us to win. I think our pitchers, and you talked about somebody earlier, that their ERA wasn't that impressive. 5-something ERA. We know as state fans that our pitching statistics definitely don't tell the story of how the confidence that we feel with those guys on the mound. They're just not the same guys that they were that gave up all those runs early in the season. They obviously just don't have the quantity of innings to get their ERAs, where they would appear impressive on paper. But we know that what they actually bring. So I like us to win.
Wesley?
Yeah, I just echo what Adam said. I mean, we're definitely picking the Pack this weekend. I mean, I'm really interested in watching JMU play. Honestly, when you start breaking down those guys and how they generate runs, and They got two big lefties, and I'm interested to see how those guys, and because they were a bubble team too. And I mean, you look at their conference; that's a tough conference that those guys are coming through. So, I guess my interest comes from if South Carolina gets up there and they're hacking at the ball with all the strikeouts that they, tend to have, and JMU's generating runs, we could very well see an upset and, a different opponent on Saturday night than we're anticipating.
Yeah, and I think if we get in that situation where South Carolina has to play from behind in the series, and you feel even more confident. Not that James Madison couldn't win the first two games this weekend, but I like the Pac too. We have some power arms in the pen. I mean, when you talk about Jacob Duden and Derek Smith, like guys that can really come in and just take good lineups and mow through guys via the strikeout. You got to like it against a team that strikes out as much as they do. I will say last year we struck South Carolina out 13 times. I think they struck us out 7, and they still won the ball game. But that goes back to the 9 walks. But being a Pac homer like you guys, and add on to Adam's point a minute ago, we're doing this podcast. I can't believe I can't believe we're on episode 17. We had last week, guys, our biggest week ever. We had over 300 distinct listeners, and I think close to it was getting close to 1,000 plays. I haven't looked again today, but really, really cool that we get to do this. I guess we kind of, when we started, we were like, well, no one else is doing it. Still don't really think anyone else is doing it. I don't think we can anoint ourselves as the voice of Wolfpack baseball or anything, but we sure do get on here and talk about them every week. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I think the Pac, I like the Pac this weekend. At home, we've played really, really good at home. And, against a South Carolina team that I think some of their weaknesses align with our strengths. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be I trust that we're going to make it a tough environment to play in. There's one thing about it: when you ain't got but 2,000 seats, to be sure we got 2,000 Pac-9 fans. To be sure, we got 2,000 people that want to go sit in that perfect weather that we're supposed to have this weekend in Raleigh and watch baseball. Not to take anything for granted or look ahead, but I do think that we wouldn't be doing a very good job if we didn't talk about some of the other regionals that are on paper this weekend. We talked about the number of ACC hosts we have, and we can go through them one at a time, and we can just kind of go lightning round if you want, guys, and even pick a winner if you want. But I tell you what, when the show was on today, and I don't know how many of our listeners were watching it on ESPN2 today at noon, but I did not want LSU to come to Raleigh.
Boy.
I did not. I feel like they're the hottest team in the country. They probably got the best roster money can buy. And that was a tough draw for our Tar Heel neighbors.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is that the thing that maybe stuck out to y'all the most in the whole show?
It was up there. I was probably the most shocked by Duke's draw. But yeah, when I saw, they rolled the Chapel Hill Regional out pretty early on. When I saw LSU going there, yeah, I guess my first sense was relief. I mean, because I just thought that the NCAA was going to do that to us, right? Like, I just thought that they were going to send, LSU and, their third baseman back to Raleigh. We were already discussing which pitcher we thought should brush him back if that would have been the case. But yeah, I'm glad. I was glad to see them go off the board and just relieved to know that it wasn't going to be them as our two.
The only thing I was thinking, and this is very selfish of me, I was like, well, if LSU does come to Raleigh, I can sell my non-NC State session tickets for enough money for one game to maybe cover my season tickets next year, because there's going to be a lot of purple in Chapel Hill this weekend. You can count on that. They are going to show up. And
They love it.
as far as Duke going to Norman, I'm all right with it. The hell with them. You know why? Because Duke always gets what they want. Every selection show. I know people don't watch baseball selection shows, but every selection show you ever watch in basketball, them son of a guns can be a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they won't play in Charlotte or Greensboro, but they'll send them to New York, and that's where they're all from anyway. So, like, send them to Oklahoma. I don't think there's a heck of a lot of Duke alum out in Norman. I might be wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb there and say
I think you would be right in that assessment.
So, another real intriguing matchup. I think that a lot of people are going to have eyes on is if we get to Saturday and Savage from ECU and Burns go at it. I mean, maybe the two best arms or two. I get Hagen Smith at Arkansas is pretty special too, but Burns and Savage, who have both been lights out all year. I mean, Burns is a high energy guy. I want to see how he reacts to that environment because I know he played at Tennessee, he played in the SEC. I don't think he's played in very many environments.
I think 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago in the Super when the Texas head coach he said in the post game, "These people are animals."
The jungle.
And hey, but is it just coincidence that the NCAA puts Wake, aligned with playing Tennessee in the Super? Is that just coincidence with Burns going back to Tennessee?
Hard to believe it is, isn't it?
The whole we can talk about it, but the whole thing is, there's 5 ACC hosts and there's 5 SEC hosts. All 5 ACC hosts, the number 2 seed is an SEC team. And all 5 SEC hosts, the number 2 team is a non-power conference team.
Yeah.
So make that make sense. You got on the ACC side, you got Florida State, their 2 is Alabama. You got Virginia, their number 2 is Mississippi State. You got Carolina, their number 2 is LSU. You got Clemson, their number 2 is Vandy. You got us, and our number 2 is South Carolina. And then you go on the SEC host side, you got Kentucky, their number 2 is Indiana State. Georgia, their number 2 is freaking UNCW.
Hey, easy.
Texas A&M, their number 2 is the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Arkansas, their number 2 is Louisiana Tech. And Tennessee, their number 2 is Southern Miss.
And Kentucky says Indiana State.
Yep.
Hey, don't sleep on them. You never know.
I ain't sleeping on the Sycamores. I mean, I know their mascot, but Adam, I didn't even realize that until you just said it. I'm sitting there scrolling through it, and I'm like, man,
I would have never thought. I mean, UNCW is a good team, but last week I was worried UNCW would even make the tournament.
Hey, I hope they win. I'm gonna be their biggest fan. They're playing in our bracket.
And then now they're a 2 seed in Athens. I'm thinking, and I'll say when you talk about who got hosed in this deal, I would say how in the hell Coastal ended up in the tournament, I have no idea. When College of Charleston got left out, and College of Charleston won the regular season, and that conference was a great conference. And
it's because their AD is the chairman. Coastal's AD is Mark Hogue, the chairman of the
right. I think that never in a shout out Boo. Boo's great, but when it came to Florida State with Boo being on the college football playoff committee, it didn't help a damn bit. Yeah, sorry Seminoles. But College of Charleston, if I had to say one team that really got screwed in this whole process, they were a really good baseball team, and they played great baseball all year, and I think that's where the committee, whether it be basketball or football or baseball, where they kind of contradict themselves, where they were good all year. and they got left out. And they played in the conference championship. They won the regular season, played in the conference championship, and didn't make a tournament. UNCW is a 2 seed. So you explain that to me, how that's possible. And then Coastal makes a tournament. So I don't know. It is what it is.
It really is a shame how college baseball is neglected, and we love it. Like, it's our favorite.
And it's the best tournament. It's the best tournament setup there is in all of college sports.
There's no, like, when the person or the team that holds the trophy up in Omaha, you're like, they earned it. They didn't get lucky one night and win it. They had to fight and scrap to get there. And double elimination format every single weekend. I won't know, Hail Marys or half court buzzer beaters. There won't know what's that song they play. There won't know one shining moment. You got to get out there and earn it. And in baseball, like, if people watch baseball like they watch football and basketball, they'd be raising hell over some of this stuff that happened today. But it just doesn't have the visibility in the 11.7 scholarships, which is a freaking joke. I've been pissed about that all day. I've been walking around when I was mowing the grass today, and I was like, I can't believe that ESPN. Now they're televising the selection show on ESPN and playing a major college sport, and they got 11.7 scholarships. It's a freaking joke.
Insane. Hey, but I will say that in terms of the SEC with number 2, Arkansas isn't totally excited about having Louisiana Tech roll up to Fayetteville. Louisiana Tech and Ruston, they got some players there, so I don't know that Arkansas is all that excited to see Louisiana Tech roll into Fayetteville.
So let's talk real quick. We mentioned the Seahawks and the Georgia Bulldogs. Boy, you talk about some pop. I mentioned that was one of the first things I texted y'all today. So NC State as the 10 seed is paired up with Georgia. Should we make it to a super? Georgia is the 7 overall national seed. In that Georgia regional in Athens, they have Army, Georgia Tech, and UNCW. So Georgia has the nation's probably best player, Charlie Condon. He's hit 35 home runs now, I think. Georgia Tech has who I think is maybe as good a freshman as I've seen in a long time, in Drew Burris, who's hit close to 25 home runs. And then UNCW's got a kid, Tanner Thatch. Is he at 27 or 8 now? I mean, he's having a ginormous year for the Seahawks. So there's going to be some juice in the ballpark down in Athens. And out of that region, I mean, it kind of feels like when you look on paper that it's going to be pretty hard for Georgia to let that one slip away. Is that kind of you guys' general feeling?
I hope they do, but yeah, I agree.
We do a lot of business in North Georgia on the chicken side, and the consensus is with that crowd is they're worried about their pitching. So, not to say they're not going to win that regional, but I think if we can pull out of our regional, I think we probably would match up relatively well with the Bulldogs. Hey, and just so everybody knows, 3 weeks ago, I was actually recording in Athens, and I told these boys I walked a mile from my hotel to the stadium just to put them on notice. So the Bulldogs are already on notice that the pack's coming soon.
I like it. I forgot about that. You did. Yeah, we ain't talking about the Bryant Bulldogs.
I would love for UNCW to go down there. I'll tell you what, UNCW is a program that me and Wesley, especially growing up in Eastern North Carolina, followed for so long. Mark Scaff, who's, I would say for a mid-major, the guy's college baseball royalty. He's been on the Team USA staff and, did a phenomenal job there for so long. And he's retired and handed it over to his longtime assistant, Randy Hood, who I've known Coach Hood for a long time. UNCW guys, if you're just casual baseball fans, you're from the state of North Carolina. So if you're ever down in Wilmington, go look at the facilities that UNCW has. They take baseball serious, and I would love to see them win a regional, and not just so that we get to host the Super. Should we move on? But UNCW, I feel like they're a program that does things the right way. They have to recruit. Can you imagine how many teams from North Carolina made the tournament? Let's see. Let's see if we can count.
I think it's 7. 7.
So it's NC State, UNC, Wake Forest, ECU, UNCW, High Point,
East Carolina.
Duke.
Yeah.
So 7 teams. So almost an eighth of the field is North Carolina schools. And, to have, if you're at UNCW, who there's no question of the non-majors, UNCW and ECU are the two. I mean, ECU obviously a little higher level here, especially over the last 10 years. But UNCW and ECU are the two programs that kind of operate in the shadows of the ACC and have been able to put really good competitive teams on the ball field. And ECU, they're trying to get the Omaha Monkey off their back. And UNCW has yet to win a regional, but they've played in a bunch of them. I know a couple of years ago they went down to LSU and had LSU on the ropes for a long time. But I'd love to see UNCW win a regional. I think that, they've done it. They've done it the right way for so long, and having to recruit against all these schools in North Carolina ain't no easy task. And then, you talk about North Carolina, but then you look in Virginia and South Carolina. All the good teams there. We mentioned Coastal and Clemson and South Carolina and College of Charleston, who we all feel like should have got in. And then in Virginia, you got Virginia Tech and UVA and James Madison. Like, there's a lot of good baseball.
VCU, they're in.
A lot of good baseball played right here on this little stretch I-95 between South Carolina and Virginia. And I'd like to see something good happen for UNCW. I would love for them to go down there and shock Georgia. It would do my heart good. Any of the regionals that you look at that, obviously we feel like we're in a tough regional against the SEC opponent, but any of the other regionals that you look at and you're like, I really like the number 2 seed better than the 1 seed. How do you guys feel about Wake Forest and ECU?
I don't. I think it's going to come down to that, that if needed game, right, in that series, because I think, Burns and Wake are tried and true. I think probably, I don't know. There's a couple of them that are pretty, interesting. I think Arizona freaking snuck in there and became a host. They got Dallas Baptist in there. They got Grand Canyon, which has been good. Obviously, there's probably some rivalry. Sure. Yeah, and then West Virginia's
got a good team.
And West Virginia's got a good team. So I think top to bottom, that's probably, in my opinion, the best. With overall regional. But the Florida State one too. Florida State, Alabama, UCF, and Stetson. I think that
Stetson's
one is
another school. Stetson's a lot like UNCW. That they're used to going toe to toe with the big boys. They put a big league. Well, you talk, and so Adam lives right on top of Stetson. But you talk about, so I say UNCW's putting guys in the big leagues, and they have. They've got several big leaguers. The Seahawks do. Tell them some of the names that have come out of Stetson, Adam. It's kind of wild.
Well, the Jacob deGrom is obviously the one that everybody knows. Yes, the Cy Young winner, and then I can't remember his name. Kluber. Well, yeah, but Kluber, he won the Cy Young. Also, and then you got Logan Gilbert, who's already in the in the early Cy Young race for this year, and if he were to win, he'd be their 3rd Cy Young winner in like the last 10, 12 years. So they've definitely put out some pitching.
And then they got another guy that never thought about going to college in his life because it just wasn't going to be an option for him, but he spent a lot of time over there at the Hatters Ballpark.
He's got his name up. Larry's got his name up around a lot of buildings around there. So,
yeah, Mr. Larry Jones.
Larry Jones. Chipper. Some people know him as Chipper. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people know him as Chipper. That's right. So Stetson. I think program that. My gosh, that's a heck of a draw, and they beat some good teams this year.
They beat Florida State. They beat Florida State right there at the end of April. I was telling you
you were supposed to go to the game, and we didn't go to that.
Go to the game, and we forgot about it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say when I
Oh,
was. Go ahead, Wes.
no, y'all go ahead about Stetson.
Well, I was going to go on Clemson because I know Wesley's going to pick them to Clemson. Are you going to pick them to Clemson?
Yeah, but I mean, back to the first question with ECU. I think if Bill's healthy and Root's healthy, and of course if E. Savage is recovered from his punctured lung from his dry needling, I think ECU's better than Wake as a whole. So I think they can win that series. But then talking about the Florida State series, you guys are right with Stetson, and I think that's probably the toughest series. Up and down. Did Florida make the tournament?
Florida did. They're a 3 seed in Stillwater. That was the other one I was going to say. I mean, you got Nebraska is the 2 seed there. Niagara is the 4 seed, but
Nebraska is not excited about taking the Gators on Friday.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma State is good. I remember, I think they won. Did they win? I think they won 3 out of 4 against Oklahoma. But anyway, Oklahoma State's good. But I mean, freaking Florida. I mean, Florida has got some dudes. You talked
kind of
about
like LSU. I mean, obviously they haven't won 40 games, but Florida's got star power. They got Cags there that hits from 500 feet routinely, and they
throws at 97.
Yes.
They could be the Ole Miss from a couple years ago.
Yeah, they absolutely could. They had the number 1 strength of schedule. They were roughly a 500 overall team and way sub 500 in the SEC. But they played I think they have. There's 11 SEC teams in the tournament, and I think Florida played them all. The other 10. I think that was their 10 series. I saw something like that. So yeah, they're definitely they've played the teams. They played Florida State 3 times. So
I'm sure with the regional that Florida State already has, they're glad that the Gators ain't coming to Tallahassee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so you're thinking Clemson's going to Clemson, Wesley? They got Vanderbilt there in Clemson, South Carolina this weekend.
I'm confident that Clemson will Clemson as always. What about y'all?
I just like Clemson, and so I'm going to pick them to Clemson too.
Yeah.
What's their coach's name? Bakich? Is that his name? Is he going to run down the hill like Dabo?
I'll never pick a team that does coordinated dances during a baseball game.
That was terrible.
Game.
That was absolutely terrible.
That might have been on my not top 10 of this college baseball season.
Yeah.
I was watching them do the Macarena or whatever the hell they were doing.
Choreographed dances, grown ass men.
Two layers, front row to back row.
Yeah, it had 2 layers. It was one. They were stacked. It was all synchronized. Choreographed, I guess would have been the right word, but yeah, it was all choreographed.
I'll tell you another one. I'll tell you something's going to be entertaining. I wish I could be a fly on the wall. Is when the fine folks from Starkville, Mississippi, show up in Charlottesville this weekend.
Damn, they might.
I would love to be at a Charlottesville bar because they're rolling in, buddy. You can 100% best believe they're going to be 3,500 strong coming up from Starkville into Charlottesville. You talk about a culture shock.
Yeah, you talk about a culture clash for sure.
Hey, so they're going to go to the bar. The Mississippi State fans are going to go to the bar on Friday night, and they're going to be in there with UVA fans, Pennsylvania fans, and St. John's fans. It's like made for TV. It's like a reality show.
That's rough.
But anyway, hope that everyone who gets the opportunity goes out and supports the Pack this weekend. Packs the place out. Don't leave an empty seat. I think South Carolina maybe not as much as some of these other SEC schools that we've talked about, but they're definitely going to travel. Get out there and support the Pack. Follow us on @PackHomer Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. my two comrades here, Wesley and Adam, who what have you guys been
We're
called?
we're part of your crew, Cal and crew.
Cal and Crew. It's not Cal and Crew. It's Cal, Adam, and Wes. They're not. What was
We
the other one?
We started out in the early episodes. We were your best buds, and now we're just part of your crew.
Yeah, here are my two best buds. And what was the other one? There's one more though. The gosh, I can't remember.
Cast of characters.
Cast of characters.
Characters. There you go. Yeah.
My cast of characters.
Cal and his cast of characters over there at Pack Homer Pod.
Oh Lord. But keep tuning in to the Pack Homer Pod. We really do appreciate it. And I mean, it's kind of dumb when you're like a grown man who has a full-time job and a family, and you're, checking out how many people tuned in. But I mean, we're passionate about it, and we've had fun doing it. It does mean a lot that
we hope we get to do it another week. And
yeah,
we hope it's a super regional preview, not a season recap.
Amen. And yeah, so like now, like we're up, several hundred listeners. I'm pretty confident. My dad is the youngest of 14 children. I think it's a fun fact for you. So for a while there, I thought maybe it was just all my first cousins listening, but I think now we might have made it outside of that. So that is glad we got here, and look forward to you tuning in next week. And who knows, man, we end up with like an emergency pod. We've discussed that a lot, but we've just been so dang busy.
Yeah.
But see you next week, and go Pack.
Go Pack.